Welcome to Writer's Digest Presents. Hosted by the editors of Writer's Digest, this monthly podcast features conversations with writing and publishing experts whose insights will help ignite your creative vision, hone your skills, build your platform, and get your work out into the world.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Writer's Digest Presents. I am content editor Michael Woodson, here with editor-in-chief Amy Jones. At Writer's Digest, we have what is called the Self-Published Book Awards, where self-published authors can enter for their chance at winning an interview in the magazine, an all-expense-paid trip to the Writer's Digest conference, and so much more. In 2021, Zenda Walker's children's book, Zara's Wash Day, left an immediate impression on us, and we agreed it deserved to win grand prize for the Self-Published Book Awards. Well, we weren't alone in this feeling because in 2022, she successfully sold the book to Running Press Kids, a division of Hachette Book Group, for a traditionally published reprint with a new foreword from Academy Award-winning actress Lupita Nyong'o, and on top of that, secured a deal to write and traditionally publish a follow-up book, Zion's Crown, available now. We are so thrilled to join Zenda Walker today to discuss her journey from self-published author to traditional published author and everything in between. Thank you so much for joining us today, Zenda.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah. Before we get started, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about what Zara's Wash Day is and Zion's Crown?
Yes. So Zara's Wash Day is a book that's inspired by a conversation I've been having with my daughter for several years, since she was actually the age of 4. She had been asking me about her curly hair and why she has curly hair and why do I braid it and beat it. And so I thought it would be great to go a little bit deeper into the history and the story of the why behind our cultural hairstyles. And so that's what inspired Zara's Wash Day. So it's a book that, celebrates hairstyles of the African diaspora. And Zion's Crown is the natural follow-up because I wanted to make sure that the series, the Know Your Heritage series, was inclusive. And so I decided to create a boy protagonist because boys also wear their hair in braids and beads and locks and all different cultural hairstyles as well.
Yeah. What drew you specifically to writing for children?
I was really inspired by my journey as a mother. I realized that, wow, I'm raising this whole human being and she's going through all the different stages of learning who she is and what, drives her, what makes her excited about the world. And so I think that those conversations and those experiences inspired me to really help children and families during especially the developmental years where they get to really learn about themselves and grow their self-confidence and self-esteem.
Yeah. So let's start with Zara's Wash Day a little bit. There's so much to love about it, especially because it does a lot more than simply tell Zara's story. It incorporates a glossary in the back as well as some hair how-tos. And you continue this with Zion's Crown as well. Why was adding that information important to you?
So it's a great question, Mike. I would say I really wanted to create this fun story for readers that took them on a journey that was enjoyable for both adults and children to read together. But I knew that there was a lot of information and history behind the story I was telling. So I thought it was really important to dive deeper into the historical context by including a glossary. I thought that was really important because also I learned along my journey of doing research and then talking to, just people as a hairstylist from being a hairstylist behind the chair that some of the adults didn't really know all of the history either because it wasn't something that was widely studied in school
or at all.
So I thought, let me empower parents and adults, guardians to be able to relearn or unlearn some of the things that they've learned about hair history and culture. And so I thought that was extremely important. And then the how-tos, it's all that kind of dives into my background as a hairstylist and wanting to also provide something fun for wash days for my readers so that they can also wear the hairstyles that I feature in the books.
Yeah. You and I talked for the magazine interview. So you've mentioned this a little bit before to me, but what inspired you to enter our competition?
I had been reading Writer's Digest and have been so influenced by the information that I've gotten. I've received so much helpful information.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about the time that I was writing the book is I knew that I had a story that had legs, meaning
Mm.
that this story didn't just end with the African American experience, right? I knew that everyone has a hair story.
Mm.
And because of being a hairstylist and hearing all those hair stories for so many
Mm.
years, I thought, wow, like this, I could probably even write a series on it. But at the time, I didn't know. You have some of those feelings as a writer, like, will people like this? Will this resonate? Will people read my book? Will people purchase this book? And I thought, well, Writer's Digest offers so much confidence to us as writers by helping us to learn the craft, helping us to think about things that we didn't always think about. And I thought maybe the writers at or the staff at Writer's Digest and the community, Writer's Digest community, would like this story. But what it taught me about entering the contest was that I I I think for most of my life I thought that you had to do something really awesome and just be an awesome person and
Mm.
people would reward you. And so even into my adult life, I'm thinking, wow, people just love movies. So they give movies Oscars or they think somebody's a great actor. And what I realized is, wow, like you actually have to believe in yourself enough
Mm.
to actually enter and put your work out there for someone to
Mhm.
consider you.
Mhm.
And this was an aha moment for me because I must have at the time, as crazy as I was during the pandemic and writing this book, I must have at the time thought that this was a good enough story that maybe this could be considered for winning a prize. And so that was my first lesson in believing in yourself enough
Yeah.
to put yourself out there and be vulnerable to the world.
Yeah, that also kind of reflects the indie publishing journey as well, because it is utterly up to you. If you're moving into the direction of indie publishing, like the only person stopping you is you.
Exactly. And in this
Yeah.
world of writers, sometimes you feel very alone. Like
Yeah.
you're kind of alone in this space, right? You're in your mind, you're in your research, you're in, what you believe is going to be something great for the world,
Hmm.
that you're going to impact the world in a positive way, but you just don't know where it's going to go.
Hmm.
And so absolutely, I think again, self-publishing, even trade publishing can feel a little bit
Hmm.
lonely at times, but I think that this entering this contest actually opened up my village. I
Mm.
realized that wow, I've found my people
Mm.
who love to learn and continue to be vulnerable, put our work out there, and
Yeah.
yeah, and create a community.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, speaking of community, there's a moment in Zion's Crown where he comes home and he tells his parents he wants them to take his braids out. And their reaction is really gentle and patient, which I loved. Their initial response is, of course, if this is what you want to do, 100% we can do that. But before we do that, let's just talk about it for a minute. And I love that moment because they aren't jumping to conclusions. They're allowing him his agency if this is truly something that he wants to do. And also, I think it gives Zion some space to feel like, okay, I actually don't want to do this. Can you walk us through how you handle that balance of recognizing a child's feelings with wanting to talk them through like the history of their hair?
Thank you for pointing that out because what I realized as I was writing that portion of the book is that um, this was a part of the book that really showed my maturity as a mom and
Mm-hmm.
my maturity as an adult because I chose for Zion's parents to hear him out
Yeah.
and let him know, this is something, yes, you can do this. But before you do it, how about we talk a little bit more about it? And really, I wanted to provide that safe space for Zion to be able to hear his parents out and for his
Mm-hmm.
parents to not necessarily tell him what he should be thinking or what he
Mm-hmm.
should be doing, but giving him the proper background and information that will help him make a decision that he would feel whole about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've learned in, especially during the pandemic. And since then, with our children going through so much and adults, right? Going through so much during such a hard time is that it allowed me to actually sit and be present
Mm-hmm.
and really understand some of the emotions that Zara was feeling at the time, it allowed me to just really be present in a way that I felt that I had never been present before because of like the hustle and bustle of everyday life.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was important to reflect that and actually also help parents understand that you don't necessarily, it's not about telling our children what to do all the time.
Right.
Sometimes it's all just about sitting, being present, and hearing what they have to say, and then actually having a really thoughtful and mindful conversation
Yeah.
around the topic.
Yeah, for sure.
So one of my favorite parts of both of these books are the illustrations. They're just phenomenal. They're so intricate, and there are so many like hidden details. If you know, when you're talking about a hairstyle from a particular culture or country, there are details of like the flag or traditional patterns. Can you tell us about your illustrator, Princess Carabo, and how you connected with her to begin with, and what the process was like creating those illustrations
It
together?
was kismet. It's kismet. During the pandemic, when I wrote the first manuscript, I knew that I wanted to connect with an artist that was very um, skilled at creating and honoring the Black aesthetic. And a lot of it had to do with really being able to draw the hair in a way that honored the curl patterns as well. And so I did some research and found an article about 8 up and coming artists. And Princess Karibo was number 3 on that list.
Oh, wow.
And so when I looked up her art and saw her website, I fell in love immediately. And I thought it would be amazing to work with her. I reached out, and this is another lesson in the process of self-publishing, was that I learned to be a little bit more outgoing and just ask, because what is the worst that someone can say, right? Is knowing that they weren't your illustrator to begin with, right? So it was that discovering that you can ask and it's okay to be rejected, because you can just learn to keep going. And Princess Kariba and I connected immediately. I told her how much I loved her art, and I reached out to her, and I told her about the project, and we signed NDAs when I told her, and she came back to me and she said she would love to work with me. And that was music to my ears, because we ended up working for about 4 or 5 months in the summer of 2020. And she lived at the time in Lagos, Nigeria. So we were working against that time difference. But it was back and forth emails. It was me creating Excel spreadsheets and giving her the mood board, and her coming back with magic. And it was an automatic, amazing partnership. And I'm so glad we were able to work with her for the second book as well. Actually, the funny story is that with Running Press Kids, they had already been working with her with another Harold Green, which is another author, and they were so impressed, like they seemed really shocked and surprised in a really great way that I had already been working with her. So it was like an automatic great, again, like I said, kismet. It was meant to be.
See, that's so interesting. That was going to be my next question, because, you know, what I've learned in publishing is, you know, with children's books, with picture books, if you're the author and you're not also the illustrator, but you want to go traditional publishing, you're not supposed to find an illustrator. You're supposed to let the publisher handle that because they have people that they work with and opinions. And was the process of working with her any different for the second book, or was it the same, like mood board, Excel sheets, all that?
Well, no, it was very different because I didn't have to do any of that stuff, really.
Oh,
I
wow.
actually provided the manuscript and descriptions of what I thought would look great for the illustrations, and this was handled completely with the publisher and their team. And so that was different because I felt like I had created a great connection with Princess Karibo, just going back and forth with her on the self-publishing process. But what was great is that we still kept that connection. It was one of those things where, you know, we're contracted differently with the trade publisher, but because I had such a great rapport with her, I could say, wow, you really nailed that last illustration. Thank you. Like I just kept that communication going.
I love that. So, after your success as a self-published author, what made you want to aim for traditional publishing, and how did you end up finding and working with Running Press Kids?
Wow, this is a story. So,
Okay. We like a good story.
so when I wrote Zara's Wash Day initially, I knew that I wanted to go the self-publishing route, mainly because I saw this as a very personal project that I knew I wanted to have full control over every aspect of it. And part of it was understanding and learning the process of publishing, making my mistakes, learning from those mistakes, but also just fully owning the process. That I would never ever like do it differently. I think starting out that way, and I encourage a lot of people to still go that route. I like that self-publishing is an option. And it levels the playing field and allows authors that may have never really had a chance with a trade publisher to be empowered to still put their work out there. So hooray and hurrah for self-publishing, and shout out to Ingram Sparks for that process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I knew that for the second book, I wanted to trade publish or see if there was something I can do in the trade publishing space, because I knew there were also different opportunities in the trade process. There were different connections. There was different, similar distribution, but a little bit more, I guess, resources to maybe potentially go further. And I'm still learning that process as we're very new in the publishing with Running Press Kids. But I knew that I actually had other goals, including potentially being a New York Times bestseller, USA Today. And I know that was something that was very important, that I be with a trade publisher in order to even be considered for that.
Sure.
And so that circles back to even applying for this self-published award with Writer's Digest, is that, wow, could I also do this next goal as well? And so whether it happens or not, it just, the belief in myself that it could potentially happen and that I could still be striving for that is really important.
Let me just say, I love that you know that that is a goal for yourself.
Yeah.
And that you believe in it to say it out loud. I think a lot of us might have, ideas about that in our minds, but we don't dare say it out loud. But I love that that's your goal, and you know that, and you can identify steps to take to try to get there.
Thank you.
That's impressive.
And you know what's interesting about that too is that I've had different mentorship sessions over the years, and oftentimes when I say that, I get told, oftentimes, actually almost every time, that you have unrealistic goals, or that's not really going to happen, or it's really hard. And what I realize is that I know how hard it is, and maybe that's just the drive in me, that it's not necessarily easy, but I don't think it's unachievable. And I think in order to reach goals, you have to have levels of goals like that you want to reach. How do you get to the goal that's underneath the really top goal if you don't reach for that top goal? I feel like you do have to at least strive and figure out, well, what are all the things that I could possibly be doing to get there? And just go for it.
Yeah.
We have this one life. And one thing I said to myself is, this was a dream since the third grade to become a children's book author. And I'm now at the young age of 46. And it's like, I did it. And yes, there were a lot of years in between when I was in the third grade to now. But the pride in knowing that I actually did it and made it happen and have been achieving goals throughout. This is the example that I've wanted to set for my daughter, but it's also a lesson in just doing it, right? And seeing what happens. And constant, it's kind of like the spice of life too, is like you once you're able to check off certain boxes, and even if not, the the energy and the what do you call it? The energy that it takes to actually dream, believe,
Mm.
and activate is to me what keeps me going every day.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, I mean, you mentioned having only one life and being willing to go for those goals. I follow you on Instagram and I love it. But I can see, like, along the way, you're having what looks to me like this fantastic experience. Like, you're in Times Square seeing your book up on billboards. And how cool is that? How neat is that?
I'm learning to really conquer some fears, but not necessarily conquered fears. Take the fear along with me for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oftentimes people are telling us, be fearless. And all my life, I've been trying to be fearless, like just without fear, not scared. And what I realize is that it's not about being fearless. It's just operating with less fear, because the fear is going to be there, but it can be paralyzing if you stop. And so if you stop dreaming and activating and believing. So I have a lot of fun on Instagram, and I try to always um, keep it really positive and try different things and not worry about the numbers or the likes or the loves, but just be my true authentic self. And learn that I could be proud of myself and be joyful. As long as, I feel good about what I'm doing and I'm doing something that has a positive impact, I feel like I'm doing what like I'm living in my purpose or walking in my purpose.
Mm-hmm. Getting back to the traditional publishing piece of it, what excited you or appealed to you about working with Running Press Kids in particular? Like, did you find an agent that connected you with them, or how did that go?
So this is interesting. I would say I've had an untraditional route to getting into trade publishing. And so it starts with, of course, a journey of self-publishing and really promoting myself and putting myself out there in a different way. I wasn't even public on Instagram and all the socials until I published this book. But then after winning Writer's Digest, self-published grand prize, and subsequently having this journey of being recognized and being and building my awareness, I decided that when I found my people, right, I found my tribe. I decided I was going to go one day to the Westport Library and support James Patterson on a talk he was doing at the Westport Library. Now, everyone knows James Patterson is one of the most successful authors in this entire world. And while I've read some of his work, it was just an unexpected it was unexpected of me to go to this event. But I said, you know what, like this, I found my tribe, and now I want to learn from other authors that, I don't read a lot of their work, but I just know who they are. And I know I can learn from this person. So we go to this event, me and my partner, and we sat up front and we enjoyed the entire program, learning from this mastermind, right? And my partner encouraged me to ask a question. And I'm really shy, even though it doesn't look like that on social media. But I was really shy. And at the time I was so nervous, I didn't know what to ask, but there was room for 2 questions. And one person asked a question and I went up. And then I asked Mr. Patterson, I told him who I was, what I do. I self-published this book. I would love to know from him what advice he would give an author like me just starting out to get to the successful levels that he's gotten to. And he answered so eloquently. I sat down and realized that I pretty much introduced myself to a room full of like 300 people, that I'm an author. And so when we went to go get our book signed, I was in line, and some of the attendees approached me and said, wow, you're an author. And so we started having great conversation about my book. I actually always had my book with me. So I had tons of my book with me. And actually people started buying my book.
Wow.
at James Patterson's books.
Sorry, James.
And as I am talking to people, smiling, enjoying the conversation, I thought to myself, this can go really well, or it can be really bad for me. Like I'm having a book signing at James Patterson's book signing. But there were some people that were in James Patterson's entourage, and I did notice a few gentlemen. His wife was there, and there were a few people, and a gentleman that was in his entourage, or should I say entourage, his group, his support, system,
Sure. Yeah.
his community. He was standing next to me, kind of off to the side in line, and I had my book, so I decided to talk to him. Actually, my partner encouraged me. He said, "You should talk to him."
Oh, what a good partner!
Yes, he's a great support. And I started talking about. I gave my 30-second speech about Zara's wash day, and we had a great conversation. He asked me if he could hold on to the book, and I thought, well, maybe you should buy the book, but because I have no idea who. I'm all about marketing myself. So, but I let him have the book, and he in turn he gave me his business card, and it turns out he was at the time president and CEO of Hachette.
Oh my gosh!
I'm sorry. Can you just say that once again?
It couldn't believe it. He handed me his card, and I saw Michael Peace, and it's president and CEO of Hachette Group, and I almost fainted. I fainted because I thought, wow, I can't believe that I'm positioned in this way, but I was so happy I did not know who he was, because I felt that I could and I probably still would have interacted with him the same way I interact with most people, but I think I would have been so much more nervous and may not have, represented myself as confidently. But again, another lesson in talk to everyone in the room. You really don't know who's going to be there. But I had gotten to this point where I had already spoken so much about myself, what I do. I always had the book in hand, always with me everywhere I went. And that behavior showed up for me that day. And a week later, I wrote a note to Michael Peace and said, thank you for hearing me out, and thank you for, looking at my book. And he wrote me back and asked me for 3 more. And I think he actually gave it to all 3 presses under Hachette, and turns out that Running Press was a really good fit. And so I had a conference call with them 2 weeks later. And here's another lesson in actual imposter syndrome, and why it actually isn't always a bad thing, because I still felt I had to pitch my book at that time. So I had a 7-slide presentation to meet with editor Julie Matisik. And I had a 7-page slide. And I, again, talked about my journey, and I talked about my vision for 6 books of the Know Your Heritage series. And it was because I presented the vision for the entire series at that time. They actually said to me, well, we actually just wanted to meet you because we were planning on working with you. But instead of taking just Zara's Wash Day as a re-release, they welcomed Zion's Crown. And so instead of a 1-book deal, I have a 2-book deal. And I am on cloud 109.
I am. I didn't even do any of this. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
I mean, that's such an incredible story.
Yes.
Thank you. And that can be polarizing, because some people don't know what it took to get to that point. And so, because in this era of instant gratification, the internet, and people becoming stars from YouTube and Instagram, a lot of people might just see that moment as wow, God just walked into luck. But it was also another lesson for me about the fact that I could say, listen, this happened, but I was in the right room at the right time, but I also had been in many rooms fighting and advocating for myself and vending my book at many events, getting rejected in certain instances, wanting certain things and not necessarily achieving certain things, but still going that extra mile. And this was the culmination of me understanding that that I had a greater purpose
Yeah.
and mission, and continuing to walk that path. And it walked me right in front of Michael Peets at the time. And I'm so
Literally.
grateful. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That is, it's just gotta be among other things, just like so validating too, that like all of my hard work like does have value. And like just getting a reprint is just, it has to be so exciting. Not to mention a new foreword with Academy Award winning actress and children's author in her own right, Lupita Nyong'o.
Yes.
When did you learn that she was going to be writing something for Zara's Wash Day, and what did you think when you heard it?
Oh, so I had been working with Lupita for about a year and a half at that point. And I actually met her as a result of self-publishing Zara's Wash Day, because while I was living in LA, I connected with her stylist in LA. Very talented stylist, Vernon Francois. He's amazing. And we were on a panel together for a private school village. And I talked about the book while he talked about hairstyling. And we really clicked on that Zoom call. And at the time, I believe Lupita was looking to lock her hair, and she was looking for a stylist to maintain it. And Vernon Francois was so gracious as to make the introduction. And I think that was really important at the time, because being in Hollywood and being on that scene in LA, oftentimes people are not really sharing that work or making those introductions. But Vernon Francois, he's so humble yet and so talented. And so, I mean, if you see his work and the celebrities he's worked with, I thought it was just showed a lot about his character, that it wasn't about competition or anything. He was helping his esteemed client. And so I didn't know initially who it was. He just said his client, but then I got on a Zoom call with her, and I was just blown away, like, oh my God, and she's so beautiful. And
Truly, inside and out, like
inside and out, amazing person. So I had started working with her.
Wow.
Amazing person. And so I never asked her for anything. I was strictly professional. We did events and things together. And I thought I was doing the Zara's Wash Day thing simultaneously, right? I was still working on my craft and working on promoting. And she acknowledged, she said she saw that in me. She said, Zenda, I would be honored. When I asked her, I was very scared, because I also know that she does, she's an Oscar award winning actor. I knew her on a different level at that point. And I thought, you know what? Again, she can say no. And it wouldn't harm our relationship. And it wouldn't harm anything. But I said, if I don't ask, I would feel regretful.
Absolutely.
And so she was the only person I was going to ask. And when she said yes, she acknowledged that. She saw my hard work. She said, you did this on your own, and I'm really proud of you. And she said she would be honored to do it. And so I'm so grateful to her. She's a great person, and she didn't have to do it, but she did. And that speaks volumes about who she is.
And such good, she has impeccable taste. I love her children's book. I worked at a children's bookstore for a while, and that was when that came out. I was like, it was the only one I wanted to sell to people, because it was so gorgeous, so emotional. Yeah.
And it's full circle too, because that book inspired me, as well as Matthew Cherry's like Hair Love. And so my daughter repeatedly wanted to read Silhouette all the time.
Yeah.
And so even just being able to get an autographed copy from Lupita, and then coming full circle to be able to work with her, and for her to graciously grant me this foreword, it's life-changing. And I feel honored to have this kind of moment in time with her.
Yeah. What I like about that story and the event at the James Patterson event story, where you talk to the president of Hachette without realizing it, is they're perfect examples of what you said earlier: not being fearless, but having less fear, and being willing to take a risk and put yourself out there. Because like you said, the worst they can do is say no. But look what happens
Right.
when you do take that chance.
Exactly. And I tell authors all the time and people who are looking to publish that you may have more fails than wins in life and in this journey. But boy, when you get those wins or, you reach that goal, it overrides all the things that didn't happen in the journey. And so I live for that right now. I'm just like, I still get no's and I still get rejected, or I still fail to meet the certain standards that I've set for myself. And then I think about that word fail and I think about I lost something and I realize I have to also change my language. And so it's learning. Learning is the word, not loss, not failure. I continue to learn and grow.
Yeah. So going back to kind of some of the differences between what it was like self-publishing that first book and now traditionally publishing the second book, what was it like writing Zion's Crown, knowing that, it's going to be traditionally published? Did you work with an editor on it? How did that process go?
Yes. So first I'll say there was a lot of butterflies because now I felt this is my sophomore album, like an artist, like a singer. My sophomore book, I have to deliver. I felt that the story with Zara's Wash Day was great, but I also have grown so much since I wrote the story. So I thought, can I deliver on this second book? And how can I show my growth? And so with the second book, I had a draft of a manuscript already when I started working with Running Press. So I worked with my amazing editor, Julie Matisik, who has been so amazing. I never thought I could have a relationship with the publisher, like from a corporate perspective, that I do with my editor, who, I feel like we have personal moments as well, right? It's a very personal relationship. And I worked back and forth with her on that manuscript, and I got a lot of the lessons that I got the first time, which is a lot of red ink or a lot of, here's how we can, make the musicality of this verse better. Here's how we can maybe even shorten. We don't necessarily need all this extra information. And it coming together has made me take things less personally and realize that editors are like, you cannot do anything without a developmental editor at large. Like, you need a team to really help you pull everything together and bring everything to life in the right way. And so I found the relationship and the action behind Zion's Crown to be another life lesson. But it was really great. And it felt a lot more smooth for me because I felt like I know a lot of the editors at different presses, they probably see manuscripts every day and different. But I felt that, wow, I'm getting the attention, like this is the only thing this person has read all week or a year. Wow. And it's been a great experience.
Yeah. So I guess going off of that, what would you say are the biggest differences between self-publishing and traditional publishing?
So with self-publishing, you wear so many hats
at once, all the same time.
At once, and it's like that joke that goes around the internet where you're like the business owner, you're like the shipping, you're the finance, you're all the hats. And I think that sometimes you get so caught up in the work of marketing the book and that you don't, that you forget about the meaning in the writing, right? Sometimes you lose sight of it and you have to constantly bring yourself back to center. And the great thing about trade publishing that I felt I could really dive deeper into the writing and my research and the meaning behind this book and the overall goal of the Know Your Heritage series was that the editor or the publisher was able to take on a lot of the publicity planning and at least the national marketing part, the ordering of the books, right?
Yeah.
And that there's somebody, I felt like I built a bigger community in this sense where I could lean on the publisher for my eventing needs, for even asking questions and learning more about the process of marketing the book. So I feel that I've just broadened my community, and it feels so good to not be running around like a chicken with her head cut off,
Right. Yes.
and trying to do all the things.
Mm-hmm.
I could be more mindful and present. And so I think I'm thankful for that as well.
Yeah, especially it's one of those things too, I bet, where like when you're so in it and it's just like, this is what I have to do. So you don't recognize like, oh, I'm exhausted. And so then when someone else, it's their literal job to take that off your plate, you're like, oh, okay.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I can slow down and recenter.
Yeah. And that might have been one of the things that was, that could have, I would say it was a hard thing to let go of. And I
Sure.
think, having a meeting with the publisher, they're like, okay, they came to me with a plan, but I came to them with my plan. I'm like,
Of course.
I'm trying to do a New York 5 borough tour and this. And I identified, I had a whole Excel spreadsheet, identified all the bookstores I wanted to talk to. And like, I was selling in this book myself. And they were like, this is great, Zenda, but here's how, we can help. And this is what we prefer to do. And I thought to myself, again, that was one of the first times I could actually exhale for the past 3 years that I've been marketing and doing all of the self-published work. So that was great.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that I don't still have to do some of the things, right? Some of the local media, and like, I still have to put myself out there. I still want to make my reels and write my blogs and try to, again, build my community and build awareness. But it just feels different because I do feel like I have a bigger community behind me that I could lean on.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that might also leave more time for writing. Mm-hmm. So I'm super curious about what's in your writing future. Is it part of your 7-page slide heritage series? Or do you ever have plans to venture into books for older children or even adults?
Yes. Talk about having more time. Absolutely. So in all of this downtime where I'm not really talking about some of the things because of contract and just waiting for the books to release, I have actually written the next 2 books in the series. Nice. And I even have started a young adult book.
Perfect.
And this has been so therapeutic because, as you said, just having more of the quote unquote down. I should say quote unquote downtime because it hasn't really been downtime.
Seriously, it sounds like downtime sounds like a scary thing for you.
Yes, it is. I've been doing so many things on the back end with my business because I've, really wanted to bring this information to schools and help write curriculum around this content. And so I've been doing a lot of that, but definitely getting back to the writing has been therapeutic. And it again helps me to sit in my purpose and then also realize that, wow, I'm actually doing something that I absolutely love. And that is being received with the intention that I'm putting forth.
Yeah.
And it feels really good, even though it's still, you go through every day and you still, I'm a worrier, right? I want to make sure that I'm continuing to meet certain, steps in the journey, but I'm a lot more calm and I'm a lot knowing basically that I'm sitting in my purpose and people are being impacted in a positive way.
Yeah.
Oh, keep us posted on your future books. Because I would love to read them.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And I'll give you a hint. I mean, it is a Know Your Heritage series. So I'm just looking to expand the global conversation. I want to be inclusive and include other communities as well. And then I may have some fun ones for pop culture as well.
Oh, love that.
That deal with heritage. So wink, wink.
Love that.
Yeah. Know.
Zenda, this has been so lovely. I love catching up with you. I'm so excited for you and deeply inspired by you. Literally every time we chat, I'm just like, what am I doing? Nothing. Zenda's doing everything. I need to replicate that a little bit. So thank you so much. I know our listeners are going to love hearing this. So where can everyone find you online?
Yes, great. Thank you so much. And you're too kind. You can find me at www.knowyourheritage, and that's HAIRITAGE.com. I'm author Zenda Walker on Instagram. I also have a Know Your Heritage page on Instagram. On LinkedIn, you can find me at Zenda Walker. Twitter, it's Know Your Heritage with the You Are Your Heritage as well. And I encourage everyone to reach out. I love to meet the community and help others as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you for listening to Writer's Digest Presents. We'll be taking a break in October for the Writer's Digest Annual Conference, and to register for the conference, head to writersdigestconference.com. In the meantime, find us online at writersdigest.com or follow us on social media at Writer's Digest.